So I have a minimum of a 3-month working relationship with most of the businesses that I go into because I believe it really takes a lot to go in, to actually observe, do my due diligence in order to put a plan in place. I'm really big about systems and processes and getting to know the people. People are your biggest assets, so spending a lot of time in the floor. So in those first 3 months, I'm going into the place of business one day every single week, spending a day taking notes, observing, and really understanding and doing more listening than talking. And so that first month just allows me to see where the holes are, where the areas of improvement need to be. It also lets me recognize who the key players are in the business so that when we go into month 2, we've got a clear-cut plan of who can I count on to oversee projects. And then from there, I like to look at bottom line numbers. Numbers tell the whole story. So my goal with any company is to say, where are you today? At the beginning of me coming in, where do you want to be when I get done in 3 months? Where would you love to be from a number standpoint? Net profits.
Welcome to Success Leaves Clues, the podcast where we interview business owners on how they built their businesses and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is David Wynn, and I'm a business coach and the founder of Purple Circle, where we help business owners achieve their first 6-figure, 7-figure, and 8-figure year, all without sacrificing their quality of life. Before becoming a business coach and before founding Purple Circle, I started and scaled several 7- and 8-figure coaching businesses, and have been a consultant at several businesses doing over $100 million each, including some that are publicly listed and doing over $1 billion each. In every episode of the podcast, you're going to learn lessons that took our guests years to learn, and you'll be able to learn that in minutes. No matter if you're a new business owner or an established business owner, every episode is going to give you the clues in order to elevate your business.
Welcome to Success Leaves Clues podcast. I'm Pedro, and today I'm joined by Amber Duncan, who, after filing for bankruptcy in 2008 with 5 kids and no safety net, rebuilt from zero to build one of the largest debt settlement operations in the U.S. and a multi-million-dollar coaching practice. Today, she coaches entrepreneurs on the operations, staffing, branding, and mindset work it takes to keep going when business gets hard. Welcome to the show, Amber.
Thank you so much, Pedro. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you. Okay. Now, you could be doing so many things, right, Amber, with your life. You could be a plumber, a chef, you name it. But you chose coaching, right?
Yeah.
Now, can you walk me through why that decision, okay? And a little bit about the origin story that got you where you are right now.
Sure. Yeah. So, back in 2008, when I ventured in and started one of the largest companies helping people with credit card debt, I came with 0 skills, college dropout. My husband and I had just lost everything. And we really just were solely focused on taking what was a horrible situation and basically making lemonade out of lemons. And so jumping into starting a business, I learned like the school of hard knocks, no education to tell me what to do. But I'll tell you, there were so many mentors I had along the way to pour into me and to teach me that when I got to the phase of, okay, we're done with our company, we're selling it, I knew that I wanted to give that back to other people who had ideas, who had these huge things that they were so scared to launch. And so that's where the coaching really began for me around business coaching.
Okay, we were talking pre-podcast, 18 years owning the business, and then the last 3 really diving into coaching, right? Is that correct?
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're talking about life after debt, right? That's the main piece you're working on. Okay.
Right. So life after debt is the debt coaching, which I do clarity calls around people struggling with credit card debt. That's more of individual, one-on-one, no shame or guilt, show up for free 15 minutes to help so I can help you curate a plan. Business coaching comes into play when I do a lot of operational business coaching. So go into a company's operations, look at everything, do a SWOT analysis, and just dive in.
So strength. Let's see if I remember back in my my college days. Threats, opportunities, and weaknesses.
That's
right? Okay. Interesting. Now, I want to ask you one thing because you've been 18 years in the game, then you the last 3, we established that into coaching. You two-folded that, right? There is a B2B component and a more of a B2C. The other one which you mentioned, the clarity calls and all that. But the last 3 years made a little bit of a shift, an identity for you a little bit, right? You stepped into coaching more, right?
Yeah.
So I would love for you to walk us through that identity shift from, I'm testing this. I exited that business, sold that business you mentioned, and I'm going to start digging into coaching, right? How did that look like when you started for working with coaching? Because I see a lot of coaches in the early days that they're testing waters, they're trying to see if this is really going to be something, and they eventually they start building the coaching practice itself. So can you walk us through, first of all, if that was like how that, I'm not going to call it a leap of faith because you exited a business, but that shift, how did
Yeah.
that look like for you?
Well, throughout my entire career in a corporate type environment, I always felt like that I was asked questions by other business owners like, how are you doing this? Or what are you doing here? So I was already feeling myself heading in that direction. But when I left corporate America, at that point, I decided, you know what? The truth is I'm going to launch a podcast. And I just want to educate people on business, educate people on debt, and just have conversations. And out of those conversations started to erupt this desire from individuals who had companies that were reaching out saying, hey, can you help me with? And you know what? I'm one of these people that I'm like, absolutely. Let me come in and take a look. And so it just kind of organically evolved for me just trying to educate people on the podcast Life After Debt, which, I always say there's two ways out of debt. One is living on a budget, which who wants to do that? And the other is drive more income. And how do you drive more income? Create a business, So it kind of just took on a life of its own from there.
Interesting. Sounds like you're a problem solver, right? So people keep giving you stuff and you're like, yeah, why not? Let me do it.
Yeah.
Right?
I love problems. I think most $1 million ideas actually come out of problems people are struggling with. It's an idea.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's something you're solving, right? Because I see a lot of people today in the AI space and developing apps, and sometimes I feel like, I'm not sure if you agree with me, but it sounds like it's backwards. Like they're coming up with an idea without realizing they have a problem to solve.
Right.
They're just like, I think this will be great, but they haven't talked to anyone. The ICP they don't know. They're just throwing out there to see if it lands. Did that make sense?
Yeah, they're just talking as if it's no big deal. And that's what I think people don't realize is that thing that they're solving, that is your $1 million idea. And most of the time it's coming out of problems that we're experiencing ourselves. So it's just such a crazy concept, but I see it over and over again.
Okay. And after you got rolling, right, in the 3 years ago stage, who are the people that kept showing up? You already kind of established that, who you serve today, right? We're talking about the business owners and all that strategic piece, and the B2C, which are people trying to get rid of that. But can you walk us through the evolution of that? Because I'm not sure if that immediately was like that. You immediately start helping those people, or you ended up sharpening the blade and attracting a certain type of tribe, that you serve right now.
Well, my social media strategy has always been one of a platform of education. And so I do these small snippets called the Money Mom, to where I'm either talking about money or I'm talking about how I talk to my own kids about business ideas. I have 5 children, and out of our 5 children, we have successful entrepreneurs at the age of 17 who've already built $1 million companies. And that's because we're constantly brainstorming with them. And so with sharing, it creates more of this, oh, well, let me reach out to her and see if she has any interest in coming into our business, because they've read my story. They've looked me up. They see that I've built successful companies from debt settlement to cupcake stores to fashion e-commerce. I've had my hands in quite a bit.
My God, now you got me very curious, because I'm a father of 2 boys. Well, not necessarily a father. I'm a referee, right? One is 4.
Yeah, that's the truth.
The other is 8. They hug and fight in the same intensity in a 5-minute time frame. So there's that. But you got me so curious right now. Like, if you had to pinpoint 1 or 2 gold nuggets that you see most people reacting to the Money Mom, right? To bring awareness into the money conversation, into the family talk, what would that look like?
Probably the biggest thing that catches people off is that I don't believe in telling my kids we can't afford something. We don't use that language in our house. I actually think the word budget is horrible. You'll never hear me talk to my kids about a budget. You might as well just put a lid on what they're capable of. So if my son comes home and says he wants a Bugatti, or he wants, whatever he wants, then great. How are you going to get it? What business are you going to launch? And let me help you. Let's brainstorm. So I'm all about creating opportunities rather than squashing dreams, and making our kids think that they have to wait till they're out of college, or they have to necessarily even finish school. Surprisingly, one of our sons who has been extremely successful. He got his GED because every time he'd go to school, the teachers were handing him money and saying, hey, can you help me with business? Or, hey, can you invest this for me? And it's like, what are we doing here? So, I think that looking at every child in a unique set of lenses and seeing what their skill set is and feeding that and allowing them to come into your business world at a very young age, they grow up around it. So they not only take what they've learned from you, but then they've got this generation is so AI, so social media, they're savvy. So add that component and they're off to the races.
Now I get it. We were talking pre-podcast about Dave Ramsey, right? And then you mentioned the budget. So for you, it's about the lens. It's not about what you need to cut off. It's more about what's possible. It's about
Yes.
more of a positive take, right?
What an awful way to go through life, thinking you have to live between the lines. Do you know how many people I talk to? Like, all right, let's sit down. I feel like there should be like somber music playing in the background, when you're saying, let's sit down and go over the budget. How depressing of a way to go through life.
Like what do I need to cut now, right? It's like,
Well,
what do I need to let go?
Awful. You never break out of that because you're constantly living into it rather than believing what's possible and saying, here's my rich life. Here's the way I want to live. I want to travel at least once a month. I want to have a Range Rover. Put all the things you want and live into that. Figure out a way to make it happen rather than cut back to live into between the lines. Oof, depressing.
Okay. You're getting me to a deep rabbit hole here. I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now I want to do a little bit of game of pretend here, Amber, if you don't mind. I want to pretend I'm your ICP, but I want you to pick one, okay? Because I know there are two here that we discussed. So which one do you want me to be?
You choose. Surprise me.
I want to go with the corporate guys. I think that's, since we're talking about business ownership here in the podcast, I think that makes more sense. Okay.
Yes.
Now, let's pretend I'm that person. I am a leader. I own a business. I have a team. I'm your ICP. I'm your avatar. First of all, how would I be able to find you, right? Marketing-wise.
Marketing-wise, you can always find me on my website, reducemydebts.com. But a lot of people have seen me. I'm part of the Women's Initiative for the AFPI, America First Policy Institute. So I do a lot of stuff in DC around that, around business, around finance. But, I think for most people, I have spoken in quite a bit of arenas around business and around my success from going to zero to a millionaire in a year with my own experience and not really much training and really just inspiring those around me to do the same. So I think just finding on the website, social media, Amber Duncan on Instagram, that's where a lot of people find me.
Okay. So Amber, I went through your website. I'm still your avatar. I'm like, wow, this looks cool. Or, someone referred me to work with you and look at what you got out there on social media. It resonated with me, long story short. I go through the sales process. We can say there is alignment, or you can talk a little bit about that. Okay. But what I really want to know is can you give me a rundown of how does it look like? A little peek behind the curtain to work with you, right? And the outcomes I can expect.
Absolutely. So I have a minimum of a 3-month working relationship with most of the businesses that I go into because I believe it really takes a lot to go in, to actually observe, do my due diligence in order to put a plan in place. I'm really big about systems and processes and getting to know the people. People are your biggest assets, so spending a lot of time in the floor. So in those first 3 months, I'm going into the place of business one day every single week, spending a day taking notes, observing, and really understanding and doing more listening than talking. And so that first month just allows me to see where the holes are, where the areas of improvement need to be. It also lets me recognize who the key players are in the business so that when we go into month 2, we've got a clear-cut plan of who can I count on to oversee projects. And then from there, I like to look at bottom line numbers. Numbers tell the whole story. So my goal with any company is to say, where are you today? At the beginning of me coming in, where do you want to be when I get done in 3 months? Where would you love to be from a number standpoint? Net profits. That's all that matters to business owners. So the truth is that if everything is going right, you're going to see a major increase in your net profits. But if you're actually having me come into your business and nothing changes, I wouldn't hire me either. But I'm so positive about, and I'm so sure about the results that I bring to the table that I would say most people, not only most, I would say 99% of them after the 3 months are renewing their contracts with me and keeping me on for the remainder of the year and then some, just because of the impact it's made in their company, moving the needle in the right direction.
Okay. And let me ask you this. I'm curious about one thing. It's like, let's pretend I was onboarded, right? I'm working with you. And in the initial point of contact in the call, I was like, yeah, so I need help with my team. They're underperforming, or whatever that looks like. And you get there and you realize, actually, Pedro is the problem. Right? The
Mhm.
leadership is the problem,
Yeah.
and I'm the paying client. But I was not very upfront about it. I was blaming the team, and all that. So how do you navigate that type of conversation when you realize the leader is actually undermining the entire process?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. And the truth of the matter is that I am an 8 on the Enneagram, so I am very comfortable with confronting hard conversations in a way that's conducive and in a way that's going to yield positive results. And when I sat in a leadership role, I always had a business coach. And so I always invited criticism, correction, because I wanted to be a better leader. And so one of the first things I asked the leader when I'm going into their business is, do you give me permission to tell you everything that I see for the good of the company? So whether it has to do with you or anyone else, is there anything that's off limits that you do not want me to discuss with you? And I get that permission from the very beginning because I'm not doing a business a service. It would actually be a disservice if I went in there and sugarcoated or did not address the true issue, especially if it starts at the top, because that's a trickle down effect.
Okay. I love that you're leveling the playing field at day one. So it's like it is asking for permission, but it's asking for permission to guide you through something better. That's the reason they brought you in, right? So that makes
Right,
sense.
that's right.
Now, I have another example that I'm curious about is like you mentioned the leadership team, the key players, right? So
Hmm.
let's say I brought you in. I'm okay. I'm a good guy in this scenario. I'm not bad, Pedro. Okay. This is good, Pedro. And you're meeting the team, right? And you're noticing a key player that is some of a teenage attitude, like, okay, mom, the guy that doesn't really want you there, you
Yeah,
know, like a
yeah,
bad apple.
yeah.
I'm not sure if that happened.
All the
Like,
time,
okay,
all the
I have
time.
to deal with this lady. She doesn't know anything about the business, and I need to explain myself. That vibe. How do you navigate that guy, the bad Pedro?
Surprisingly, I think one of my greatest strengths is being able to immediately know who's a good fit for that role in that company and who isn't. Who's the drama queen? Who everybody plays a role, right? And so I can pretty quickly sniff that out. I can remember in my own company, there was a girl who she was a crier. That's the way she manipulated situations. She cried every single time. She'd cry and run to the other owner, cry and run to the other owner. But at the end of the day, I could either feed into it and play the game, or I could call it exactly what it was, which was I could literally look at her crying and not react at all and continue with my conversation, just as if I'm not acknowledging this behavior, first of all. So, I think that you have to be very strategic when dealing with any type of employee who is considered a problem child. But, Pedro, at the end of the day, they always work their way out, especially when you have someone like me coming in the company. They're going to get very antsy. They're going to feel very out of place. And so I demand results and I have levels of accountability that requires that everyone at some level is either sending over a nightly email with their production and you'll find that most of the time, these people that are the drama queens or the problems, they're the lower producers, which is why they're causing problems. So nobody's looking behind the curtain of what's really going on with this person. They're a waste of space. They spend more time crying than they do getting stuff done. So it's those kind of things that you just have to be able to navigate. But I do it in such a way that they really feel like they got me.
My dad, he had a consulting firm here in Brazil, private owned. And he told me something that I really need to ask you. It's like sometimes he felt like a scapegoat. Like the owner wanted to fire some people, but they didn't have the guts. And they
Yes.
want to blame him because
Yes.
the consultant is here.
That's right.
And did that happen to you too?
All the time. You'd be shocked how many people will hire me simply to be the bad guy. But, let me just say to business owners out there, if you are loved by everyone on your team, you are not doing your job. you can be loved and be respected. But, at the same time, not everyone's going to like you, and you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with knowing that people aren't necessarily going to talk the best about you behind your backs. All you can be responsible for is that you're integrous in the way that you're leading and you are having the hard conversations in a non-emotional way. You're, keeping your integrity intact. But at the end of the day, if you're out to please everyone, you'll run your company in the ground.
Yes. Okay. Now, let me throw you a small curveball that I saw my dad going through a little bit. And it's so interesting because he's in Brazil or was working with that. And now you're there in the US and some commonalities, right? But let's see if this happens. The consulting slash coaching job is very hands on, face to face, and it can burn you out, right? It depends on you showing up. At least with him, it was like that. So, how do you think about capacity? So you don't stretch yourself too thin, because the business at the end of the day, sometimes they want to talk to Amber, right?
That's right. So when I used to own my own business, I think it's a different approach than when you're going into other people's business. I actually find more delight in going into other people's business and solving their problems and putting out fires and having the hard conversations. I like it more than I did my own. And I think it's because I know I can get in and get out. And there's not that tie to it, to the bottom line, to the extent that it is my company and I have to see this person every single day. I think what happens a lot of times is that because I go in and I embrace everyone from the top to the bottom, some people create like, well, you just don't understand what he's doing to me. And then it becomes what I call the big comfy couch. And I don't entertain that. It's like, I got to get in and get out and make a difference. And so you have to be very careful when you're going into these organizations that you're not listening to everything that you hear. You're keeping a little bit of a barrier up, but you're also limiting your conversations and have boundaries around when you're making yourself available to these people. Cause it can take over. And at the same time, I only deal with, especially if I'm going in, if that's what the company's hired me to do, I only do 5 of those at a time, just because the bandwidth on me personally and keeping everything straight and really giving it everything that I have, I wouldn't take on more than that.
So you're intentional about your capacity. Okay.
Very intentional.
There was another example that my dad told me. I think it's so funny. And I worked at Ernest and Young here in Brazil, so consulting background too. It's like they hired him and sometimes they're hiding stuff from him. Like, so he doesn't get to know that they were doing something they shouldn't be doing.
Right.
So he knows down the road, they're like, what's up? Did that happen to you too?
It does. You'd be shocked. It's the dumbest things too. It's like, this would have helped if we knew it right up front. So let's get it out, or, I've gone into companies before, and I'm talking companies that probably had no business taking out loans to start the company because the monthly income, there's no way they're ever going to, it isn't worth it. If they would have done a pro forma from the beginning, it doesn't make sense on paper. Right? So it's like you find out later, yeah, no, I didn't self-fund. I took out this loan and then I'm like, wait, what? What? Right. So it's like those kind of things that can definitely throw you for a loop. But again, it's not your business, truly. And so you're only as good as what they tell you. And so I can only coach up to what they're telling me. And I tell them right from the beginning, the more vulnerable, the more honest you are, the more you lay all your cards out on the table, the bigger impact I can make.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's shift gears for a second here. I am curious about future, right? So where are you taking all this? Looking ahead, where do you see the business going? Are you thinking about scaling, hiring, or is there a next step you're excited about, Amber?
Yeah, honestly, I love business, but I actually love helping other people reach their business goals. And so I am doing a lot of one-on-ones right now with individuals with ideas. That's another consulting avenue that I have where they call in, they do a business brainstorm with me for an hour, and we really see if they have something. And then from there, if they do, then I can help them create and put the pieces in place to grow professionally and bring this thing to life. I'm doing a lot of that. I'm also writing a book right now, which I'm super excited about. It's called Let Me Be Clear. So it's all about clarity and what happens when you get clarity in certain areas. I think we seek recognition or acknowledgement from other people to validate our ideas, our way of thinking. And honestly, probably in the last 5 years, I've seen people just crave clarity and they want to talk with someone that they feel like they can walk away and they're completely clear about their next move. They're completely clear about what they need to do to succeed without all the fluff. just give it to them. So I'm super excited about that. And just, continuing to go in and turn operations upside down and watch it flourish after that. That is fun. That's a lot of fun for me.
Exciting. Okay. And whenever we're aiming towards something new, next chapter and all that, always
Mhm.
something we're refining in the present, right? So what are you currently trying to improve or tighten up in your business?
Well, I mean, as far as tightening up my business, I think marketing is always an area to where it's a moving target. And so, especially around debt, debt is an ooey topic that most people aren't going to like and comment on your social media, pages as if they're agreeing with you that they're struggling with credit card debt. So it's a very, very hard avenue to go down when it comes to debt. And by the way, you're waiting for people to hit their rock bottom moment. Same in business. Business, especially if it's people who know you or they put on like they're doing great, the last thing they're going to do is reach out and ask for help because maybe they're not doing what they think. So you're really just kind of navigating between the marketing of people who are struggling in debt, but also business owners who could use a boost in their net profits. I stay pretty busy, surprisingly. Right now it's actually more about slowing down a little bit. That's probably what I see myself for the next 5 years. I am in that phase. My kids are getting older. I have grandkids now. So being able to enjoy life a little, not take everything so seriously. As much as I love business, it is nice to also find that balance. Like, okay, I don't necessarily have to take on this company right now. So yeah, a little bit of that too.
Okay. So it's like it's not scaling by scaling. It needs to respect some boundaries, some
Yeah.
certain type of lifestyle.
Yeah, I'm watching my kids and they're working smarter, not harder. They're making a lot of money in 2 hours a day. So what am I doing here? And that's really where I want to get into is, how can we scale this in a way that doesn't require more of my time, more hours in the day, but can yield a better profit, but in less time.
Now let's step here real quick in a sci-fi territory. Okay, if you don't mind. Let's pretend we have a time machine in front of you. Okay,
Mhm.
Amber. We're gonna have two stops. First
Okay.
stop, you can actually. I'm gonna give you two options in the first stop. You can go back 18 years ago or 3 years ago. Okay, and you can give yourself one piece of business advice you wish you knew back then that you know now. What would that be? And which stop are you actually
Mm.
pinpointing? Is like 3 or 18 years ago?
I'm going to choose 18 years. And here's the piece. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the very first time. When you actually see who someone is, especially in business, just believe that that's exactly who they are and don't reopen the door.
Love that.
People are
Yeah.
your greatest asset or your biggest problem in business. And I when I look back over the 18 years, most of the hiccups or most of the turmoil in business, it comes from the wrong people.
Yeah. I worked in sales too as a high ticket sales closer and all that. And I think behavior is a language, right?
Mhm.
Like if someone no shows you, is it worth it to chase someone like that?
No,
Did they give you a reason? If not,
just believe
you
them the first time.
yeah, right? It's like whenever someone acts in a certain way, they're trying to tell you who they are. It's
Right.
about you believing are in them or not. It
That's
doesn't
right.
have to be with you, right?
Right. That's right.
100%. Okay.
You can't change and improve everyone.
Yeah, I think sometimes at least myself, I'm very optimistic about people's intentions sometimes.
Mhm. Yeah.
And you're like putting myself in their shoes, and reality is more, it's often disappointing, I would say. Right. Okay. Second stop, you can go back in time, 18 years, entire time frame. Pinpoint one exact point in time that you felt the most fulfilled. That you felt like this is the reason why I started this.
Mhm.
That moment. And you may have several
Yeah.
several several moments, but I want the top of mind, you know?
Yeah. So for me, it's 3 years, going back 3 years, as much as I did in the 15 years of helping thousands of people with their credit card debt in the corporate arena, to me, my purpose where I felt the most fulfilled was when I launched the podcast Life After Debt. And the reason why is because sitting down and having real conversations with individuals about their struggles, about how I was able to help them out of this and navigate them out of debt attorneys, financial planners, all the individuals that I had interviewed, it reminded me of why I do what I do and why I love it. And being able to educate consumers about their rights, knowing what rights they have in this world around their credit card debt, that they don't have to just answer their phone and be harassed, that they can validate their debt. And giving them tools in their toolbox to me is more rewarding than all the money I made in the 15 years. It's like I loved doing that and hearing and seeing the response from individuals like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Thank you so much. So obviously 3 years ago, for me, the impact of helping businesses and helping individuals, that definitely.
Let me ask you this because I'm very curious about people exposing themselves publicly since I am
Yeah.
a podcast host. Did
Yeah.
you had a hard time for people, showing their true colors out in the public, talking about that, talking about the obstacles, the challenges, or not at all? At least in the early days of the podcast, right?
Well, it always takes you creating a space for vulnerability. And so for me, when I shared my own story that we were both mortgage brokers, we lost everything in 2008 and filed bankruptcy. And I was standing in front of the bankruptcy attorney and he said, I'll see you here again. And I was like, heck no, you're not going to see me or anyone else I can help. Like, what a statement. But it pissed me off enough to do something to make a difference. And so that's when we started the company helping others avoid bankruptcy. So, it's my story that opens up the door for people to be honest about theirs. It's like, oh, well, then if you've been there, I feel comfortable telling you that I'm behind on my credit cards but you've got to create the space for individuals by being vulnerable yourself if you want them to share. And so that's something that I've never had a problem with is sharing my own story. And that's what created the ripple effect of other people feeling comfortable enough to ask for help. And by the way, unless you can get real about it and ask for help yourself, like that's 95% of the issue. Once you can do that, you literally have turned the corner. You can't ask for help unless you're vulnerable enough to share. And as human beings, we are wired to never show our cards. How are you? Fine. How are you? Great. But that's not true.
Dude, I think that is like the true key asset for a coach is like being able to be vulnerable. I had people on the show telling me, like, for example, the reason they became a coach was because, like, this kudos to her, Lauren Lawrence. She opens up the episode saying she became a coach because, and she helps people land to get into the job market after 50. Right. And one of the reasons was because her brother committed suicide after being laid off. But the way she owns her story, it's so powerful. Right. It's
Mm,
hard to not connect with someone like that. And the way you're talking about it, it's just like if you're open enough, because coaching people, I mean, you're asking hard questions, you're exposing them. It's only fair you do the same and you're open about your own story too.
that's
Right.
right. That's right. I want people to know I've been there. I have sat in that seat. I have felt what you're feeling right now. And guess what? There's a life after it. I'm living it.
Love that. Okay. Now, if someone listening wants to connect with you or follow your work, Amber, and we're going to have all the links in the description, okay? But where can people find you best and connect with you?
Sure. They can find me at reduce my debts with an s.com, or you can email me directly at amber@reducemydebts.com. Along with that, you can also find me on Instagram. It's Amber Dunk, the debt coach. So yeah, definitely reach out, ask for help.
Okay. Few golden nuggets from this chat that I feel the need to highlight. Okay. Let's start with the origin story that you were being asked by other business owners when you started more of into the 3 years ago, the coaching journey, right? And it's not something you wake up a day and you're like, oh, I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to do this. And it's just like very organic,
Yeah.
very natural, right? And there is one point that really stood out to me is the educational piece, that everything that came to fruition, it was about educating people towards something you feel like there is a light at the end of the tunnel, just like you said. So I love that purpose mentality. At the end of the day, as you said, numbers, great, profit, bottom line, great. But the purpose, the reason behind it is, I think it's even greater. It shows that you do have it. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, also the money mom, I really like that. I'm just spinning my wheels on that, and the positive lens you have about the thing. It's not just about the budget. The budget sounds so negative, right? And you're
It's
like, what's possible? You want to go
yes.
there? You want to go there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you gonna do about it? Right? I I love that. Like how we're gonna solve that. because
That's
it's a
right.
different lens. Instead of cutting stuff, it's like imagining what's possible. Really love
I
that.
mean, we're shaping our kids right now to have a belief about money, either that it's scarcity or that you can have anything you want. You just have to work for it and you have to be smart and you have to figure out how to get it. And that's fun.
Yes. Last but not least, back to purpose. When you said you love helping individuals with their goals, right? It's not just about educating, but getting them to that outcome. It's something that drives you. So this is just my long-winded way of saying, Amber, that I appreciate what you do and I appreciate you being here and sharing so openly today. Okay.
Yeah.
It was great
Thank
having
you.
you on.
Great being on, Pedro.
That's it for this episode. This episode, as well as this podcast, was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help business owners elevate their business to 6, 7, and 8-figure years, all without burning out. If you're looking to grow your business, as well as get the time freedom that you are looking for, visit us at joinpurplecircle.com and see what we can do to help you and your business.